Welcome back to 23-Minute Reads with me, Maya D. This is like my accountability vlog because in these short videos, I share with you my takeaways from my current reading. Right now, that is Dance and Belonging by Crystal U. Davis. As a part of my 23 to 23 challenge, I'm reading 23 minutes per day, every day as an action of self-love, as an investment into myself, and as a way of providing myself with some consistency in an ever-changing world. Hoping that you will join me along in this journey by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and just adding to that discussion of dance, because that's really what it's all about. Well, this week I read pages, look through my notes. I read pages 1 through page 45 of the book, and let me share with you my 3 takeaways. Wait, before we get into that, some of you might be wondering why 23 minutes, and the short answer for that is because I did that read 21 in 21 minutes challenge, and at the end of 2021 I was like, well, what next? So I decided on January 1st of 2022 to read 23 minutes per day, every day, to the best of my ability, and see how many books I could read by December 31st of 2023. So I'm on book 11, and this book is called Dance and Belongings. Dance and Belongings. I was right. Dance and Belongings. And here are my 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1 is Somatic Check-in. I'm bringing my notes a little closer. In the preface, the author writes this quote: "Somatic check-in moments in which I will ask you to check in with your body," end quote. I appreciated the inclusion of this directive, or this like letting you know that it would be in the book, because when I read a book, I feel like it's a portal into a new space. I laugh, I cry, I scribble, I get up and dance sometimes. I daydream. So I felt like including that in the book is going to encourage me to have a deeper experience with the reading. So I'm excited about this book. Like, when Davis first posted that the book was coming and I went to the link and it was like, oh, you gotta wait, like you can pre-order. I waited. So I'm really excited about reading this book. Takeaway number 2 is Vincent E. Thomas. The author writes, "Professor Thomas's accompaniment choice demonstrated how different acoustic traditions are still tied to creating improvisational experiences," end quote. So in that quote, the author is actually describing an improvisation class with Professor Thomas, where he uses a live vocal percussionist, someone that is that has experience in movement of the diaspora, specifically more leaning towards hip hop experience. So prior to this, Davis is referencing this because prior to this, she explains, or she revisits a moment that she had with a student. She described that student as a passionate dancer, so someone that is there, that's like given to this dance thing, but in this moment had a hard time connecting with the activity. The student shares with Davis that they actually were having a hard time connecting with the live musician that was there. So it's still a live musician, but that they were having a hard time connecting with that music during this improvisational activity. Davis uses this experience as a moment of reflection, which I think is very important as educators, that we are reflecting on the experiences that we're curating for our students, In this experience, Davis realizes that she chose music based on, here's the quote, "her indoctrination into the cultural norms of the modern dance class," end quote. This allowed Davis to evaluate the messaging that she'd received in her dance training and how she had allowed that to manifest in her own teaching praxis. As I was reading this, I felt like a question I then I know that I've asked myself, but will continue to ask myself is, what's appropriate music for a modern dance class? What's inappropriate music for a modern dance class? And who gets to decide what's appropriate and inappropriate? Professor Thomas's use of a live vocal percussionist is an example of how we as practitioners can build doors that give access and offer other possibilities. This story also reminded me of a section in the book, Dance Pedagogy for a Diverse World, where the author talks about improvisation and how some of us grew up in forms that foundationally embed improvisation into them, but are not but, and I guess is better, and are closely related to the dialogue that happens between the mover and the music, or the mover and the musicians. With that in mind, that some of us are inclined to that musical dialogue between the mover and the musician, it makes the musical selection as I'm choosing my playlist for my dance classes very important for me to think about that, so that I am choosing a play to the best of my ability, right? I'm choosing a playlist that is reaching as many of my students as possible. I often find I'm a pensive person. So I find myself asking myself, who am I inviting into the class and who am I leaving out? And then reminding myself that I have the ability to change those factors, which takes me into takeaway number 3. Takeaway number 3 is institutional oppression. The definition offered in the book is this: the systematic subjugation of a group of people by another group of people with access to social power, the results of which benefits one group over the other and is maintained by social beliefs and practices. The author, to help give you the reader, or me the reader, understanding of that, the author offers the example of the misconception that is perpetuated about ballet being the foundation of all dance forms. Now, I say the perpetuated misconception because ballet, while it is a classical dance form, is one of the younger classical dance forms, which means that there are other classical dance forms and that there are also older dance forms. So how would ballet be the foundation for all dance forms? We know that when we look at history. But there's still this other thing going on in dance education. This falsehood has since become a mandatory, because of this falsehood that is perpetuated, ballet has become a mandatory requirement in many dance education institutions, under the notion that ballet is needed in order to have a successful dance career. This means that other forms are pushed to the periphery and are valued as less than. I experienced this in my own undergraduate career. Now, I want you to have in mind that I returned to my undergraduate process as a person that was 20 plus years of age, the mother of 2, and I'd already performed on stages around the world. I'd already had a successful dance career, but I struggled in ballet classes taught in the United States. I struggled. And I felt ashamed for years. I tried to take additional classes that were away from the eyes of my colleagues so that I could feel confident in teaching a ballet class within the institutions that I worked for, because I felt like I needed that in order to be successful. I now realize that I'd internalized that bias. Wow. I internalized that bias. I'd accepted the false narrative that ballet was the thing And therefore, I felt pressure to uphold that false narrative in order to be good, in order to secure a job, in order to successfully maintain a career as a dance educator. Because I am a person from a marginalized community teaching a marginalized dance form. I was not yet in a position that I could create policies and make determinations that would subvert that ballet narrative. And it wasn't until reading this book this week that I verbally contextualized my feelings around my inadequacy based on that ballet narrative that has now been institutionalized and being perpetuated. So this week, just this week alone, I feel motivated to continue to reflect and to evaluate my own personal biases, because everyone has biases, but what we learn in the book is that we want to understand what they are so that we can do better. But what about you? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below, and feel free to make book suggestions. I am Maya D. Thank you for joining me for my 23-minute reads. Spread a good word, stay blessed, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.